Hey class, welcome to English 241, Early British Literature. My name is Louis Ninny. I'm your instructor this semester. I am the online instructor, and I do have an office in the Smith building. If you're ever on campus and need anything, I'm more than happy to meet with you. I know that a lot of you are probably taking this class through your CCP because it does help replace your senior English, which is pretty cool. We'll cover a ton of literature, and I think that's something that you guys will enjoy. I want to start a couple things. First of all, you will need textbooks. Obviously, you've got the big Mamma Jamma right here with everything in it. This is what comes from the bookstore. You may have an older version. I've got, I think, 5 or 6 versions of this that are from earlier times. And, it is early British literature, so the literature hasn't changed a whole lot. You'll probably be okay if it's, I think this is if I'm looking at it correctly, this is the 10th edition. If you have the 9th, probably the 8th, you might be okay, not a big deal. You may have to find some things. There's a lot of it on PDF because these things are so old, they're available online for free. And you will want a copy of Dorian Gray. The one that comes with the book is actually a critical edition, which means that it has a lot of extra things that will help you with the assignment. We'll be doing a critical analysis on Dorian Gray. Great piece of literature. I think a lot of you guys will really enjoy it because it is a little scandalous and it's a very indicative of the Victorian period. I went outside of the time period for this piece because it's just something a little extra, a little ancillary piece, something different. I think that since we don't offer the 242, the secondary piece, you guys may not get exposed to that, so this is something newer and something a little different that I think will really go over well. We'll do a thematic analysis, and I'll give you the details on that later, but essentially what you'll be doing each week is reading the assigned reading. I will have some discussion boards up there. You'll have to make sure that you use the text and that you discuss the actual piece of literature that we went through, because that's essentially what's going to be making up the daily grades and your attendance grades. The other things we'll focus on is there'll be a couple tests, a few tests actually. The first one is going to be multiple choice. The second piece of it is an essay. The essays are weighted a little heavier because obviously it's an English class and you'll need to make sure that you are writing them well. And you'll see all that. I actually have all the weekly folders set out for you in advance. Do not work ahead. If you work ahead in the discussion boards, I'll delete what you did. So you can work on them, you can see them, but you can't necessarily post because that's the way I do attendance. So a little bit about British literature itself. British literature is an interesting thing because it's old. Way back in the Dark Ages, there was a point where the British left. And they said, we're kind of done. Britannia, they ruled for a long time, and they just kind of left, and it left everything in disarray. That's when the Norse came over and began. You'll see the Anglo-Saxons and the Norman invasion and all these things. Everybody was fighting for that area, and so it kind of left things crazy. So when we read something like Beowulf to begin with, it's very interesting because we don't really know what it was, and so we found it, and it was probably something. And a lot of the writings were in the monasteries, and so when let's call them the Vikings, because that's more interesting and more fun. When the Vikings came over, they destroyed the monasteries, and a lot of the literature and a lot of the things that were written were destroyed. So you just don't know exactly what was what, but it's very interesting to see because it does reflect the values of the people of the time. And then we'll get into other pieces. We do some Shakespeare and some other things like that that everybody gets excited about. And it will be interesting, and it will be stuff that we get into. And if there ever are questions, obviously I'll help however I can. On a personal level, I've been at JCC now for, I think this is my 7th year here. I taught in the high schools for a long time. I was at West Johnston. If any of you guys are here from West Johnston, yay, go Wildcats. But it's certainly a different experience. I really enjoy it. I have 3 kids at home. I have 3 boys. The youngest is 2. He'll be 2 in August 25th. And I have 2 twins that are in 3rd grade. And those guys are a trip, to say the least. But anyway, so they kind of keep me busy for the most part. But I'm always quick on the email if you need me. My goal is I keep it on my phone and I respond as quickly as I can. I don't always have the information right in front of me, especially if I'm at home. I don't always have computer access right there, but I can say, hey, I'll get that to you. So ship your concerns, especially if it's something about timing or grades or something to that effect. The other thing I'll mention is that It's very important that you keep up to date on your postings, because you have to look at the discussion boards and pay attention to the rules, because the rules are that you have to have things in by a certain time or you lose points and lose credit. And obviously everyone wants to do as well as they can for these classes. Alright, the other thing I'll make mention is I want to be sure that you guys don't get discouraged at the beginning, because some of what we're reading is difficult. Up until what is it, fall break, I suppose. We have fall break. You'll see a lot of things that are very archaic in nature. So Beowulf might be confusing. You may not understand the initial things we do with some of the King Arthur stories. But what you need to do is find ancillary material, things to supplement. I always look at Shmoop. I think it's got a nice edge to it. It won't do the same as actually reading it, but it will be, a nice summary. You will have to have direct citations in your discussion boards from the text. So Shmoop helps, but it's not going to take the place of the actual readings. The other thing that you'll need to be aware of is that we will have a lot of things going on this semester that have just different language in them. So like I said, just use your materials. Even with Shakespeare, it's all kind of crazy, and it's toward the end of the semester. So take advantage of your resources. Email me if you have questions. Feel free to stop in my office if you need to. But that's essentially English 241, and that's your basic intro to the class and your professor. Nice to meet you guys. Have a good semester.